Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the last edition of PSN Sports Network for the high school football season. And Artie and Nikita, we are in the state championship games starting tomorrow. And Nikita, just looking at the schedules that we've got here for these title games, which game to you stands out the most for this week?
I think, to me, the game that I most look at would be 6A. You got Saraland, who knocked off Spanish Fort, playing a really good, really tough Clay Chalkville team that's going to be really two good offenses going at each other. And already, Saraland knocked off the Fort last week, the defending 5A state champion, and that's a big feat to do this day and age.
I'd have to agree with you on that. I mean, this 6A game looks really good. Saraland with a really good defense and Clay Chalkville with a really good offense. As you seen, earlier in the season, 85 points. That's just insane in itself. And can Saraland slow them down?
Well, they slowed down Spanish Fort, but I don't really know how good Spanish Fort's offense was this year. But knowing what we know about Clay Chalkville, like you said, they like to put up points, but they also give up 50 in that game where they put up 85. So we'll just have to wait and see what Saraland can do.
We're talking about the state championship games that we've got kicking off here pretty soon. Let's jump right into things right here, and let's go with the first ever 7A state championship, which will be held down in Auburn at the University at Jordan Air Stadium. You've got Hoover taking on Prattville tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. And Nikita, the first ever 7A title. It could be a good one. We hope it's a good one. But what do you think the outcome's going to be?
Oh, yeah, I think it'll be a good one. You got two traditional big-time school powerhouses in this game. You got Hoover, who everybody knows is, one of the greatest teams in Alabama high school football history. And then you got the Prattville Lions coming in from the south. They've been there. They were there in 6A. They won, a couple state titles away from Hoover. And Artie, this is going to be a classic match of the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, these two schools know each other well, maybe not in recent history, but just overall. Prattville is a team that, I'll be honest with you, I just didn't see this happening. But by some, hook or by crook, they are here.
Yeah, exactly. And Hoover, we already knew was going to be here. I mean, we're not trying to say anything bad about the other North teams, but Hoover just knows how to dominate, knows how to take care of business when the time comes.
Exactly. And another thing to point out about Prattville is the fact that, this is not, new territory to them, playing a overwhelming, favorite being Hoover. And in the past, if you'll remember, Prattville actually knocked them off a couple of times.
Yeah, when Hoover was riding that number one status in the state, and Prattville come in way, way underrated like they are right now. But at the end of the night, I don't think this is that same Prattville team that upended the Bucks those years ago.
And also, Hoover, in recent memory, has trouble scoring points in these championship games. I don't know exactly what it is, but if you look at them in the past, they score a high amount of points, but to get to these championship games, and it seems like it just didn't come as easy to them as it did in the regular season.
Well, it's probably the combination of nerves and not really knowing your opponent that well, because in recent years, you didn't have that much time to prepare, but this year, 7A had a week off in between their third round and their championship round because they didn't have enough teams to fill out the semifinal round like the rest of the classifications did. So maybe they're rested, maybe they're studied up, and they can put up some points this year.
That's true, but also, I think it kind of hurts Hoover. Hoover was on a roll. Does this week off affect them any?
Well, it's probably going to affect both teams as far as, Prattville got rolling in the playoffs, even though they didn't. They're only a two-loss team, but we looked at them and didn't get them out of the first round. But I think both teams are going to be slow out of the start. The first half is probably going to be pretty ugly. You're just going to have to hang with it and just let it get to rolling. But the second half should be exciting. It should come down to a photo finish.
Well, I don't know if we're in agreement, but myself, I would have to take Hoover in this thing. I think it will be a little closer than folks think, but I do like Hoover to win it.
Yeah, if I had to go over or under, I would say probably Hoover by 10. Prattville's going to play them hard, but it's just too much Bucks and too much Hoover.
And that's pretty fair if you ask me.
Well, Artie, speaking of, Hoover-Prattville, like you said, Prattville plays Hoover close. When they played them in the state title games a few years back, I think actually they beat them twice. 1 year they've played like 3 straight years, I believe, almost in the state title games, I believe. Going back to Prattville, they give Hoover problems. Can they sort of rattle them again, come tomorrow night and give them more problems like they have in the past?
Wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, at this point, as I said earlier with the Prattville, we've kind of doubted them the whole way, but here they are still alive and still hungry to win this thing, and it really would not shock me at all to see them knock off Hoover.
Well, we watched, Hewitt Trustful give Hoover all they wanted in week 8 or 9, 10, somewhere around in there. And if Prattville really wants to win this game, all they got to do is look back at that film and see what Hewitt Trustful did to get them rattled and get in their heads.
Well, looking at other games that we've got going on, a Thursday matchup, the first game of Thursday is Dale County and Madison Academy, the 3A matchup here for the state title game. That game will be at 11 o'clock that morning. And Nikita, looking at that matchup, who do you like coming out of it? And is Madison Academy still the real deal?
Well, I can tell you, me and Artie went down and watched Madison Academy play Glencoe in a very, very good matchup, back and forth seesaw. We haven't watched Dale County. I don't know much about them, but I do know that Madison Academy has very good athletes and a very good defense that's liable to shut down Dale County.
Well, I do have a note on Dale County. They got one of the, I guess, best rushers in the state, you could say. The kid is actually broke the record for the most yards in a season with, I believe, somewhere around 3,000, which is just unheard of. And, as you say about the Mustangs, you got the obvious Kerryon Johnson, Malik Miller combo. How do you stop them? Or can you stop them at this point? Malik Miller coming off 16 carries, $160, and then Kerryon throwing in a touchdown or so there, and also with him being able to move him all over the field, it's a headache for a defense coordinator.
Well, Glencoe done one thing against the Mustangs that most people didn't do. They didn't throw the football. They didn't give Kerryon that opportunity to take away the deep ball, and they run the ball all night, and that's what made them stay with Madison Academy. But, knowing what we know about the Mustangs, it just come down to that final drive, and Glencoe did not have an answer.
Well, as you was talking about with being able to run the ball, it kind of takes Kerryon out of the game to an extent defensively. I mean, I know he can still get in there and make some tackles, but he's used to playing over the middle. He's used to being, very athletic and being a ball hawk. But if you don't put the ball in there, that kind of takes away that ball hawk.
Well, I hope Dale County's defense brings their A game, because them two kids are going to give them all kinds of trouble. We watched Malik dance through the defense all night and cut in and out. And I mean, this is, he's 6 foot, 6'1", about 250. I mean, and he runs like a scat back. So you're going to have a lot of trouble containing him if you get him in the open field.
Well, as you say, just, you look at it from a physics standpoint, you get a 6 foot, 220 kid coming downhill at you in full motion, running a 4.5, 4.6. Maybe I'm not even giving him enough credit. The kid's quick to be so big, and it makes it a load to make a tackle on him.
I mean, he's like watching some of the kids on the college level. He makes one cut, makes 2 cuts, and he's down the sideline or down the middle of the field, and you're not going to touch him. So,
well, just his ability to cut and be such a big man. I mean, that in itself is very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, he runs like Kerryon, but he's got the load behind him to lower the shoulder and just take a hit and just keep on pounding.
Exactly. So looking at this matchup, I don't expect Madison Academy to run away with it by any means, but I do like them to actually win this game.
Yeah, I got to go Mustangs again, looking for number 3 in a row. So, good game it'll be, but I believe Madison Academy will outlast Dale County.
And another thing about this is old hat to them. I mean, this is their 4th appearance in this game, and they're going for 3 in a row. So, I mean, I don't see any nerves by any means by them. I mean, this is what they expect, and this is just normal.
Well, that's what we watched the other night. The demeanor of these kids, they play like a college team because they get down and then they just act like it don't even faze them. They don't even hang their head. They just go back out on the field and do what they do. and they got the game-winning drive last week, kicked a field goal with like 9 seconds to go, and that was the ball game, and they just never weathered a bit.
Well, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. There's not any, like, ups or downs with these kids. You don't ever see them get overly excited. You don't see them get down on themselves. They just go out and they execute because they know if they go take care of what they can take care of, they're going to be successful.
Because at one point, that game with Glencoe could have went either way last week, but Mason Academy took over, and like I said, we got Mustangs on both sides, so back to you, Brock.
We're staying with Thursday games here. Looking at 1A is Maplesville and Hubbartville. They'll kick off right around 3 o'clock down at Auburn. I'm already looking at this game. Hubbartville, a pretty good team. Maplesville, also a good team. They're both in the state championship game. What do both teams need to do to, win a state title?
Well, as far as just looking at it from football standpoint, Hubbartville likes to score a lot of points. So if Maplesville can slow that high-powered offense down, Maplesville should be looking to win this thing. But Maplesville, I don't think, is in the least bit intimidated by Hubbartville. I mean, Maplesville has just run right through whoever they put in front of them. I mean, they're on a mission. They're playing some really good football. And, I mean, this is a team that could be very competitive in 2A, if not win the 2A championship if they were in that bracket. And Hubbartville, on the other hand, they're, I believe this is their first appearance ever in a state championship game. So they're extremely hungry, extremely excited, but can they, deliver in this one opportunity?
Well, we talk about a lot between the difference between South football and North football. Not taking anything away from North teams, but when you go south of Birmingham and you get down into those other counties, teams like Maplesville pops up, and them teams like that will beat you like you stole something, Artie. I mean, it don't take much, and they're down the field 3 or 4 times, and before you know it, it's 21-0, and you have no answer, and then you're just done.
Well, with those South teams, it's all about the speed. I don't know what it is, but they're just so much faster down there than they are up this way.
And, I mean, not taking anything away from Hubbartville, they've had a good year. They made a good run in the playoffs. They beat the teams that they're supposed to beat. They beat a good Marion County team last week that had beat a good, what we thought to be a really good Donahoe team, and just took care of business. And then Marion County got in there and took out Donahoe, and then Hubbartville took them out. So I'm looking for a good battle, but at the end of the night, I've got to go Maplesville.
And probably Maplesville just kind of pulling away, too, is how I see it. I mean, one thing I want to point out, though, is Maplesville actually played at Tanner and held them to 21. That's a very dynamic, good offense, probably better than Hubbartville, maybe just as good or whatever. So, I mean, Maplesville will not be intimidated in the least by Hubbartville, I don't believe.
No, they play up in their non-region games 2 or 3 times a year when they have to play them, so they're not going to be intimidated by another 1A school that they know that they can take care of.
And guys, to close out the Thursday games here, we got a primetime game that night between St. Paul's and Pleasant Grove, a 5A matchup here for the state title. To me, Pleasant Grove a little bit of a surprise to get in the state title game. St. Paul's not that big of a surprise to me. Nikita, just talk about Pleasant Grove, their win last week to get in, and also talk about St. Paul's, and also who you like to win the 5A state title.
Well, Pleasant Grove coming in this week into the finals, they knocked off a Madison County team that beat a really good East Limestone team, and so that was a major upset in my eyes.
Exactly.
And was on the fence last week about whether or not Pleasant Grove would win, Madison County would win. And already took Madison County, but I took Pleasant Grove because they were the home team. I knew probably the home team would have the advantage, but I believe already this is Pleasant Grove's first appearance in a state final.
I believe that's true.
And what better way to kick that off than against the 5A, been a prominent power all these years, St. Paul's.
Once again, it's kind of the same story with the 1A. I mean, you have a Pleasant Grove group who's probably extremely excited to be here, and then you got St. Paul saying, here we are again, and let's win another state championship.
Well, St. Paul's, they got that mentality of we've been here before, we know how to act, we know what to do. Let's just go in, get it done, claim another 5A title, and go back home and just celebrate with our fans.
And plus, with St. Paul's, you got to take into consideration that they've been number one the whole season, wire to wire, I do believe. And that's very impressive in itself, and that's a lot of pressure to be had. But they just seem to just keep on rolling.
Well, even though I feel most people will look at Pleasant Grove and say, man, they are so outmatched, they're so outnumbered, I believe wholeheartedly Pleasant Grove will give St. Paul's all they want, even though it's not in their home turf, which they've been really good at home this year. But St. Paul's better be ready because Pleasant Grove's coming to take something that they feel like is theirs, and they're not going to leave without leaving it all on the field.
I think you're a very smart man on that. Pleasant Grove's really playing well defensively. I mean, they shut out Gunnersville, and then they held Madison County, I believe, to 13 points last week. Another really athletic quarterback, running back combo. So, I mean, they're used to seeing some really good offenses, and St. Paul's is not just a really good offensive team, but they're good enough. And I agree. I believe this thing will be close, but I like St. Paul's at the end of that.
I really, really want to pick Pleasant Grove. I mean, I just really want to put myself out there, but I think at the end of the night, I'm like you. I got to go St. Paul's with the experience, being there before, knowing what to expect. It's going to be on that grand stage in Auburn in the collegiate stadium, and I think St. Paul's just handles it better.
And guys, moving to Friday now, our games we got here, the last 3 games, to 4A. You have a Leeds team with a 1 loss on their resume, and also Dessler with 1 loss on their resume. I believe Dessler went 7-0 in their region, won the region title out of their classification in 4A. Should be a good ball game to kick off Friday morning, 11 o'clock game, early game, but nevertheless, still a good game between both schools. Already, is it a throwdown game, or is it a battle of the defense?
I expect this thing to be a lot of points. I don't know, just not necessarily from a standpoint of bad defense. It's just really good offenses. You got, Sam Howard playing some really good football for Dessler at quarterback. And then on the other side of the things, with the Green Wave, you got Tadero Marshall at quarterback, and you got Trey Nation at running back. I mean, that's a deadly combo and a hard thing to stop.
Well, and also Leeds has 2 good wide receivers in Coy Freeman and Jacoby Lockhart. So, Tadero will be looking to make big throws to them, and Dessler will be looking just to shut down that offense that not a lot of people have been able to do this year. Leeds, they bounce back and forth between the north and the south. You don't ever know which way they're going to lie, but this year they're in the south, and I'm sure, like teams like UMS Wright and all them was just, so tickled to get them back.
Well, speaking of UMS Wright, I don't know about you, but I was extremely impressed with that win last week. I expected them to win the football game, but I didn't expect them to win it 42-14.
No, me and you both, because UMS Wright, when we were growing up, that was the 4A team to beat. You
exactly
thought
right.
South football, it was UMS Wright.
Mm-hmm.
So for Leeds to be a 3A school once upon a time, step into 4A and just continue the dominance is just amazing to me.
Well, Coach Etheridge, he's got that thing rolling. I mean, you got a kid, as I said, Trey Nation, one of the best running backs in the probably country. I wouldn't say state, I'd say in the country. And Tadero Marshall, a really good quarterback who can really throw the ball deep and hurt you in that manner. And like I say, with Nation, you got to stay in your lanes and try to tackle the kid because he can take it to the house at a blink of an eye.
But don't get us wrong. Don't sell Dessler short, because this is a Dessler team who is a traditional 4A North team.
Absolutely.
They've come in. They did what they do. They win ball games. Like I said, they won their region perfect this year, and I believe they have a fighting chance to stay with Leeds for a good little while in this game, and might even possibly get out a win. I know a lot of people don't want to believe that, but I believe that Dessler might have that outside chance of beating Leeds.
Well, they just have so much to play for. I mean, those kids are extremely motivated. Not that Leeds is not, because I know they want to win it just as bad, but with those Dessler kids, it would just be something else to be able to say that you went ahead and won a state championship after going through the tragedy that they did earlier in the season.
But, Artie, I know you're probably going to go Leeds. But I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to ride the Deshler train on into the finals and crown them 4A state champions.
It would be a great story, but I'm sorry, the 12 o'clock's going to strike, and you're going to turn into a pumpkin, and the Leeds Green Wave's just too much, too many athletes, too much speed, and like I said, I don't expect them to blow Deshler out, but I do expect them to win this game.
But do you think Leeds being that high-powered and that optimistic to knowing that they almost feel like they're guaranteed to win, will they overlook Deshler, and that will allow Deshler to slide in and take advantage?
I don't think so. As we were talking about, with Madison Academy, they have that, I don't want to say, robotic style, but that just take care of business. It's what we're here to do, is to win the game and execute. And I think that's what Coach Etheridge and the Green Wave are all about, and I expect them to do that.
Yeah, it'd definitely be a hard ball game, and I'm sure Leeds might even probably win. But like I said, you got Leeds, and I'll take Deshler.
And rolling down to 6A, the primetime game between Saraland and Clay Chalkville, you have a Saraland team with one loss. They had to go to Spanish Fort, a good Spanish Fort team. They get beat 28-13. You have a Clay Chalkville team that's undefeated. Another good game, Nikita. That one loss, early in the season, it was the fourth game of the year for them that Saraland got beat. Like I just said, Clay Chalkville is undefeated. Who do you like in this game? And overall, shootout, blowout, defensive game, what do you think?
Well, I definitely think it might lead to being a shootout game unless Saraland can get their defense rolling against the Chalkville. But, like I said, Saraland avenged that loss earlier in the year to the Fort, took them out last week when it mattered, and got into this final game. But, Artie, you know as well as I do, Clay Chalkville is a high-powered offensive team, and it'll be hard to slow them down.
Exactly. I mean, this is a team that scored over 20 points, I believe, somewhere in the range of 60 straight times, which is a state record in itself, which is just unthinkable. And as I said earlier, they scored 85 points in a playoff game. That's just incredible. But, looking at this matchup, Saraland plays some pretty good defense. I mean, they held Spanish Fort to 10 last week, which is, pretty impressive. But one note about that is Spanish Fort wasn't that, they played good defense, but they really didn't have that explosive offense like Clay Chalkville. I mean, you got Tyrone Pygmy back there throwing the football, and it's going to be a tough task for Saraland to actually get this win.
Well, the only thing that worries me about Chalkville is that, like you said, they put up 85, but they also give up 50 to Scottsboro, who was the 4th seed coming out of Region 7. And like you said once before when we were talking, that at one time it was a 14-point game. It was 64-50.
That's right.
And Scottsboro still had a chance, but Chalkville ended up pulling away. That's the only hiccup that I see, that Chalkville can put up big numbers, but they also give up big numbers, and that could come back to bite them.
But, if you score more than the other team, does it really make a difference?
Not really, but if the other team can keep it close and get a couple stops, it could make all the difference in a ball game like this.
That's true. But one other note about that is that kind of sticks out to me. If it does get into that shootout type game that we, kind of expect to see, does Saraland have the firepower to keep up with them?
Well, they only put up 14 against the Fort last week, but that was enough to take them out because they only held them to 10.
That's true.
But, we haven't seen Saraland, any of their films or anything like that, so we don't know what kind of offense they do. But we do know Clay Chalkville will score some points, and I don't know about you. I like Saraland, and I picked them last week to beat the Fort, but I think Chalkville takes this one and is your 6A state champion.
I would have to agree, and I really wouldn't be surprised if Clay Chalkville didn't kind of run away with this thing.
And looking at your last game here for the high school football season, it's a 2A state championship game between Fife and Elba. The game's going to kick off right around 3 o'clock. Guys, Fife is the only team around here in our area that's made it to the state title game. Some people say they've had a soft schedule. They've steamrolled through teams, steamrolled through their regular season schedule. Just looking at Elba's schedule right here, they've had 1, 2, 3, 4 shutouts. And when I mean shutouts, they've just hammered people when they've shut them out. 2 explosive offenses, you could say. Elba runs a similar type offense to what Fife runs, except Elba, they like to spread it out a little bit more than what Fife does. Already, can Fife stop the pass when Elba goes to that shotgun look?
Well, I mean, historically, if you look at it, as we was watching the Elba film, Elba reminds me a little bit of Leroy, honestly. They like to spread you out if they don't want to get in that bunched up run look, kind of like the Fife look. They can also, get that 5 wide look, and can Fife deal with that? I don't know. I mean, I've seen in years past against a Benefield style defense, the pass has really hurt them. And I think one of the biggest matchups that you're going to see in that process is can Elba can Elba protect enough to be able to throw the football effectively?
Well, we look, and their quarterback, who is Ramsey Rigby, he's number 7. Keep an eye out for him. He is the coach's son. He probably knows that offense better than anybody on the field. He knows where everybody's going to be. He knows where they're supposed to be. And, we watched. They had a good little wide receiver, number 6. His name's Blake Edwards. Keep an eye on him. He's going to be one. They threw to underneath, over the top. Didn't matter. He would catch it like a cold in the wintertime. But, like you say, Fife has trouble vertically. They can't cover vertically. And if what we seen in the 5 wide sets they were getting in, Fife don't play that many DBs. So that means they're going to slide some linebackers out on some slot receivers. And if Elba goes to throwing slants and deep routes, Fife could be in a bit of trouble.
Well, one thing also sticks out to me, as you were saying, having to cover those people, that's going to take a lot of those folks out of the middle of the field where Fife loves to camp out. So does that open up the run game? It makes you wonder.
Well, like we look at, they run a double wing, and the fullback is right up under the quarterback. So you don't know who's getting the ball, just like Fife.
Mm-hmm.
The defense from Elba, they swarm to the football.
That's true.
Just like Fife. So
there's very, very few times that you didn't see, 4 or 5 kids going to the football.
Well, even then, their defensive tackles would just get in the backfield and just wreak havoc no matter what kind of play they run.
Exactly.
We watched them against Sweetwater doing that, and, Sweetwater got a little cute, run I don't even know what you call it, but they took like a wide receiver and shot him into the backfield, and he quarterback pitched it, and then Elba just ate it up, completely. So, if Fife wants to win this game, they've got to get get downhill in a hurry. They got to get Stiefel downhill. But I'm going to tell you, it's going to be physical on both sides of the ball because Elba is just as physical as Fife is.
It looks that way, and also, I don't know if you have a note on this, but the tackles and the guards, some big kids. I don't think Fife's seen this kind of size.
Well, both their tackles are over 300 pounds. The one kid's like 315, like 6'5", and they got receivers that are 6'3", 6'4", 200, 215. So
exactly,
that's pretty bad matchups because most of Fife's secondary kids are 6 foot, maybe on a good day.
Mm-hmm.
So you got all these kids.
Well, actually, I think Fife might have one guy in the secondary, that Will Brown kid. He may be about 6'2".
Yeah. But he can't cover everybody. So
no.
You're going to have mismatches. You're going to have 5'11s on 6'4s and everything else. Because
exactly.
They like to hide. It looked like to us that they like to hide their receivers in and out of the slot, so you don't ever know where they're going to line up unless you just look for the numbers. So Fife's got to protect deep, and if they can't do that, then Elba could give them a hard time.
Yeah, and another thing that really stuck out to me is we were talking about the different formations. Versatility is one thing I believe it sticks out to me about the whole offense as you look at it. I mean, they line up in so many different formations, and you see some of their wideouts lining up at running back and just move kids all over the place. And that can really be a headache to a defense coordinator.
But like we've watched, Fife, they're physical up front. They got big O-line. They like to dominate the trenches.
That's true.
They like to get Stiefel downhill. They like to get
Kilpatrick
down the hill, in which he done that against Tanner.
He
Tanner got tired, and they put Kilpatrick in. And
he just squared up them pads and
he went right over
plowed
the
right through
center, and Tanner didn't have an answer for it. But at the same time, this Elba team is a lot bigger up front than Tanner was on the front line. So it's just going to be one of them big-on-big ball games that you're just going to see who's tougher and who's meaner and who hits harder. So
that's very true. Really, the only team that kind of sort of compares to Elba that Fife has actually saw is Reeltown. And as we saw in that game, they were able to kind of stuff up that middle. I mean, there was no running up the middle on them. And also they were able to get to the outside and stop them for the most part. But, as time went on with them, Fife's speed overwhelmed them. But in this case, just looking at this Elba team, they're not as fast as Tanner, but they're not as slow as Reeltown. A very, balanced kind of attack.
Well, another thing that's going to hurt Fife is they're not playing at Fife. They're playing on neutral field. They're going to have as many fans there as Elba does. They're not going to outnumber nobody. So it's going to be interesting to see how Fife handles a neutral site game against a team that matches them beef for beef, man for man.
That's true. And one thing that really stuck out to me against Tanner was the fact that they were able to own the trenches because of their size. In this case, they won't have that advantage and can, if they're able to do what Reeltown did to Stiefel and, kind of bottle him up, can Mashburn step up enough to throw the football and get the chains moving?
Well, not taking anything away from Will Mashburn because he's done a good job at quarterback this year. But sometimes his throws get a little high and they get a little rainbow looking. So from what we've seen from Elba, if you throw a rainbow, they're going to take it away. They're not just going to knock it down. They're going to double cover you, take it away, and try to get something going the other way. So,
well, they just seem like they really understand the passing game. They know what they're is coming, and they seem like they go up and really high point the ball.
Well, and too, it looked like that they have enough kids that they rotate their defense a little bit. That's not the same kids playing both ways all night long. So there's fresh bodies in there when maybe.
And that was another thing that worked against Tanner too.
But, Fife does the same thing. They'll roll 2 or 3 running backs in and out, and they'll roll some linebackers in and out and try to keep everybody fresh. But, how do you game plan against a team that you've never seen in person? You've only seen them on film.
That's true.
And it's just like going in being blind that you just don't know what's going to happen. It's just going to be pretty much who can coach better in the heat of the moment and who can react better on the field when the time comes down to those big-time plays.
Exactly, and if it does get close, how's Fife going to react? They really haven't been in a lot of close games. As to where Elba, as we've seen on a few of these, they were in some tight football games, like last week, for instance, pulling the upset over Washington County and being able to contain Holcomb. I don't see them looking at Stiefel as somebody who's going to run all over them.
Well, he might get the better of them a few plays up the middle, but if he tries to stretch the corners, they're going to be waiting on him. They're going to be the defensive ends for what we've seen. They stay at home. They read and react. They don't over-pursue. So it'd be interesting to see what Stiefel does when he gets reacted to, the way he reacts to other teams when they open holes and he shoots through them, and they're going to be there to close them holes and try to contain him. And from what we've seen, when it gets hot and heavy, sometimes Stiefel don't want to stay in there. He wants to sub in and out when he gets a good lick or two in the mouth.
Exactly. Doesn't really like the contact thing. He likes to get on the outside and avoid that. As to where, on the other side of the ball, you got Elba with Kaz Stinson. I believe that's right.
Yeah, Cav Stinson. He's a running back / wide receiver. He'll be number 3.
Exactly. Real quick kid. Not very big, but really looks like he can really be patient and wait for the holes to open up, and he likes to get that edge also. So, you got him and Stiefel kind of doing basically the same thing. But with Elba, it comes to mind, I believe they can throw the football a little bit better. They got more, as you said, taller wideouts, things like that. So, with all that being said, what do you see happening?
Well, I see, much like the '07 game with Leroy, it's going to be tight for the first half, I believe. But in the second half, I believe that the Elba Tigers will take over and not blow Fife out, but get enough of a lead that, knowing Fife like we know them, they're a front-runner team. And if they get down, 10 or 12, 14 points, they're liable to hang their head and not come back because they've never faced that adversity any time this year.
That's very true.
I mean, the tightest game they were in was Tanner, and it was 7-7 at halftime, but then they just kind of overtook everything and outlasted Tanner because Tanner ran out of gas. But when a team like this rolls in and they get 10 to 14 points ahead, will Fife have that mentality to just sacrifice everything that they can to be able to win this ball game?
Exactly. I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head. As far as looking at this game, I'm like you. I'll kind of bounce back and forth on it, but I think at the end of the night, at the end of the day, rather, I don't know. This 5-0 line is just really good at what they do, and I don't know. I think it's going to be really tight, but I do like Fife to actually win this game.
So you're going to take Fife, and I'm going to be the outcast here and take Elba.
Well, you got to make the pick that you feel, and that's the case that we've got. So, it's going to be close. I don't expect either one to really blow each other out.
Well, one takes Fife and one takes Elba. We'll have to see how it plays out come Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And just speaking of the Fife and Elba game, our team of the week is the Elba Tigers. They beat Washington County at home 21-14. A good Washington County team, I might add. Nikita, once again, talk about Elba and their last week win to get to this point in the 2A state title game.
Well, it was a shock to us all. We all had Washington County playing Fife in Auburn, so they knocked off the number team in 2A, and I think they're number 6 right now, which they should bump them up to 2A or number 2 since they beat the number 2 team. But with the final standings being done, I doubt that'll happen. So,
yeah, there's no voting anymore.
We'll put them at number 2 because this will be number 1 versus number 2 in our eyes. Because
exactly.
You beat the number 2 team, you automatically get there.
You would think so.
These are only 2 teams left that are undefeated in the state in 2A, so we'll put them number 1, number 2, Fife being the number 1. But, yeah, big props to Elba for beating a team that we thought was unbeatable in the South. And, Artie, do you have any comments on that game?
Well, it was kind of a bitter pill for me because that was one of my champions biting the dust because I'd picked Washington County actually to win the state championship. And, as you know, I still have 6 of my 7 champions still alive, but that was one that bit the dust. But, just hats off to Elba. They really showed that they had some serious defense to be able to shut down a high-powered Washington County offense that had been averaging, I don't know, in the high 40s, it seemed. I mean, they dropped 60 several times. And of course, as I said earlier, D'Anthony Holcomb, one of the best running backs in the state, to be able to bottle him up, just hats off to him to get that win.
Well, Elba also took a Sweetwater team that averaged 40, 50 points a game and took them to where they couldn't score. So, obviously, Elba's defense is really good, and that's why we give them our PSN Team of the Week.
And we have run down the classifications 1A through 7A for the state championship games starting tomorrow with 7A. A good 7A game, once again, between Hoover and Prattville. Any final comments before we sign off and do this again to wrap up everything next week, Nikita?
I was going to say, just a reminder, we are not going away. We will be back for college football. We will be back for bowl pick'em. I probably do. Well, we won't do it. We won't do the championship games for the conference championships, but we'll be back for all the college bowl games and the first ever college playoffs. So tune in back with us. We're not going to give up on football just yet.
Well, we'll talk about the fallout of the whole Final Four situation and anything else. Anything y'all want to talk about, you email us, and we'll be glad to talk about it. Because, we're at a point now where it's going to be a little touch and go for us because, our high school season will be in the books. But, as he said, we're not going nowhere. we'll find something to talk about, and we'll try to do it the best we can. Just one note, though, all of those that are heading to Jordan Hare, be careful on your way down there, and just safe travels to you and good luck.
And like Brock said, we'll be back with the wrap-up for all the state title games next week and give you our thoughts and comments on who got the championships and who runnered up.
Yes, we will be back next week to once again wrap up everything, give you our preview of our state champion winners. So for Artie and Akita, this is Brock Bennett from PSN Sports Network. Once again, join us again next week. We'll wrap it up for you, and we hope to see you soon.